In the first part of this program, welcome back, we reviewed some of Dr. Montessori's basic values, including that of teaching the whole child, paying attention to his or her mental, physical, emotional, and social growth. Her general advice was follow the child. His or her curiosity and love of learning will guide you. In the first section, we discussed values and how they're conveyed in our culture through education. Let us assume that your child has successfully negotiated his or her early years of preschool, conventional or Montessori, and he or she is approaching entry into first grade. Alas, education today, and I know this may offend some of our audience, is a business with its own rules and regulations, which may have nothing to do with the love of learning. In most of the United States, public school kindergarten, age 5, is free. First grade entry, however, in most of our United States, is solely determined by a child's birth date. I am told that a test is given to Chinese children before entry to first grade. I don't know if this is true, and if it is, if this is the only criteria for entry. I have never seen such a test, nor have I been present when such a test has been administered to an entering child. By using only a birth date, we are, I feel, not asking a relevant question. And the relevant question, as we phrase it, is your child ready for first grade? Many children might well be advised to repeat kindergarten. They will become more self-confident, they will become more independent, and they will have a clearer understanding of what school is and what school could be for them. We have in the United States many first grade skills checklists to determine readiness. I have offered one to your symposium sponsors, and I have recommended to them that they either give it to you as a handout when you come to our lecture, or to put it on some internet site so that you can review it at your convenience. The first category is social skills, where, as you expect, they talk about sharing, they talk about working together, they talk about listening to instruction, they talk about following instruction, social skills. The second is reading comprehension, listening to stories, understanding the progress or the plot of the story, being able perhaps to identify or name the characters of the story, understanding some of the problems in the story, if there are any, being able to answer specific questions about events that take place in the story, reading comprehension. The other aspect of that is they talk about writing. A child must be capable of writing his or her own name, not just first name, but first name and last name. A child must be able to copy words from a book, from a blackboard, onto a paper. A child needs to be able to write basic stories or copy basic stories into a book or onto a tablet. Or a child needs to be able to write words in the vocabulary list, if such is being used in his classroom. language and listening. This is beyond social skills. This is in the areas of comprehension, that the child needs to be listening and being aware of language. Certain words have certain associations. Does the child know what they are? Certain experiences or certain happenings in a story mean different things in different situations to different children. Can the child describe or understand what he or she is reading or listening to? Number operations and problem-solving skills. I begin with my 3, 4, and 5-year-olds by teaching the names and values of each number. The children have very little problem counting. They can count to very high numbers because it's an oral skill, a listening skill. What they don't understand is the value of what they are counting. They are not confident how many is 5. Their easiest way of remembering that is they have 5 fingers, and they have 5 fingers on each hand, so they have 10 fingers. And the concept of 10 is easier for them to understand than many others. Language is a problem. In English, teens, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is not easy for many children. After 10, they become very confused. In many other languages, Chinese among them, you count 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 10, 4, up to 20, and then 21, 22, and so on. This is a problem. There is also the issue of money. More and more children do not know the value of American coins. Why? Because when they are in the market or in the shop or in the restaurant with mom, mom pays with a card, a piece of plastic. She doesn't use bills. She doesn't use coins. They don't recognize them. They have no idea what the value of these coins might be. They couldn't possibly make change if asked. They could not, in their mind, recognize the value of a coin and how you might use it or expect to receive it back in change from some kind of a purchase. On a more advanced level, we talk about numbers, operations, and problem solving. Again, numbers are recognized. Place value is a problem. Is it true that a child may or may not understand what happens after 10? And does he understand what happens after 20 or 30? And what does 100 mean? In my program, I have many, many different manipulative materials that we use to encourage children to begin to visualize what 100 somethings mean. So, operations, we expect basic addition and subtraction to be common to most children in first grade. Generally, multiplication and division will come later. Problem solving. Again, this has to do very often with fractions. If a child is given, for example, an apple or a pizza or something else of a recognizable shape, can he or she divide it so that everyone gets a piece? This leads into the geometry and measurements area. Montessori children are very, very fortunate. They not only learn one-dimensional shapes, circles, squares, diamonds, octagons. They learn three-dimensional shapes, ovals, cubes, rectangular prisms, so that they have a fundamental knowledge of what these objects are and how we use them in everyday life, and they can name them. Problem solving comes into geometry and measurements too. How tall am I? How much do I weigh? Did I weigh more last year? How much have I grown? What can I expect to grow if my father or mother is such and such a size? All of this is relevant to a first grader. The other thing that they learn, or expected to know, is math in action, as we call it. Not just counting money, but telling time. What time do they get up in the morning? What time do they have a lunch break at school? What time is a favorite TV program? What time is bedtime? What time do they need to get up in the morning to leave adequate time to prepare for school? Social studies. This is an area that Dr. Montessori called culture. It's learning about the world, not just the world they live in, their neighborhood, their shopping areas, where they might go on a school vacation, but the big, big, wide, wide world of which they are a part. We could have many geography lessons, maps. We talk very, very often about how far it might be to go in a car from one place to another. We talk about flying from one place to another. We talk about the people who live in different places. How do they dress? What do they eat? What kind of work do they do? All of this may or may not be part of your child's knowledge when he or she enters first grade. And we talk about science. We talk about how hot or cold things are. We talk about weather and climate. We talk about seasons, an awareness of what happens in winter, what happens in summer. Many children are very interested in the stars because they hear and are aware of outer space and travel in outer space. So, but on a more basic level, they learn about the kind of chemistry that happens in the kitchen. How do we make certain foods? What does temperature do to our foods? Hot or cold? What do we combine that smells good? What can we avoid, which is dangerous? How do we grow certain crops that we need to eat? How do we feed the animals who live on our farms? How do we take care of the animals that live in our homes? All of these are things which might be involved in readiness. I would be impressed if I ever met an academic teacher, kindergarten level, who could provide in the 185 days of a usual school year all of this information all of this information to her 25 or 30 students. Anyone using this checklist deserves my admiration and praise. So, no matter what your child's preschool experience has been, and no matter what kind of first grade he or she is entering, and knowing all your child's strengths and weaknesses, how can you help prepare your child for first grade? First, I feel you need to recognize that for many children, this is a more significant milestone than it is for you as a parent. Your child has grown during the summer following his kindergarten year and will need new clothes. Maybe he'll even need a uniform for his new school. Is he comfortable in these clothes? Do they make him feel more grown up and more self-confident? Or do they make him feel like an imposter and uncomfortable? If your child needs to ride to school into first grade on a school bus or a metro by himself, is he fearful? If he's riding on a school bus, he can probably expect to be teased by older children. Is he or she prepared for that? In fact, there are endless aspects which may make your child anxious and uneasy about entering first grade. A new teacher, a new classroom, a new schedule, a new lunchroom, new classmates. For some children, first grade may be a great new beginning, but not all children are mature enough or confident enough. We need to prepare our children for first grade. Is there a checklist for successful parent behavior? And if so, where could we find such a list? I didn't have a good answer to that question, where could I find such a list? But I was aware of the fact that following my previous lectures during question and answer periods, I was asked questions about parent-child problems at home or child-teacher problems at school. I suspected that my answers were incomplete and really not helpful, as I offered only specific solutions to specific problems, but nothing which could offer long-term help to parents as they tried to act differently as a family as their children grew and matured. I did not recognize that behind these questions there is a critical issue of successful parenting. Is there a parent readiness checklist, as I ask myself? And if so, do we need it just for first grade? Or can we use such a checklist for any and all periods of a child's life and family life as we are together? Yes, in our culture, there are such guidelines. We know that Dr. Montessori believed that every child deserves our love, respect, and guidance, but she gave us no detailed blueprint on parenting. We can deliver these affirmative messages, according to child psychologist Dr. Rudolf Dreikers, by focusing our words or actions on a child's behavior and not on the child himself. This is a very interesting comment to me, and one which I understand very clearly. Many children, in fact, many adults, have accidents. We drop things, we forget things, we behave in a way that isn't quite appropriate. We need to be reminded that our behavior is not appropriate, but we don't need to be told either we're clumsy, or we're stupid, or we're always late, or we never understand, or we're just too small to do that, or never mind, I'll do it for you. This does not give a child any feeling of success. It only indicates to the child that we consider him inept and unskilled and generally inferior. Failure, according to Dr. Dreikers, only indicates a lack of skill, a lack of experience, a lack of understanding a problem and how to solve it. It in no way affects the value of a person. In his volume, Children the Challenge, Dr. Dreikers states that the successful parent is the parent who knows how to encourage, not to blame, not to chastise in public, not to demean, but to encourage. I was particularly interested in the use of this word because in Chinese culture it is considered unlucky to praise a child. It should not be considered unlucky to encourage a child. As Dr. Dreikers defines it, encouragement is a continuous process aimed at giving the child a sense of self-respect and a sense of accomplishment. From earliest infancy, he needs help in finding his place through achievement. This advice, according to Dr. Martin Sheen, is followed by a 15-point grid developed by Dr. Dreikers on the principle and language of encouragement. It is my hope that the complete grid has been provided to you, either in paper form when you attended our lecture, or will appear on the internet for you to read and discuss. Dr. Dreikers further developed what he identified as the foundation skills for successful parenting. First, be warm and loving. Encourage your children. Give positive responses. Show empathy. Be sympathetic to them and to their problems. Again, focus on the behavior, not the person. Develop a democratic parenting style in which you are not always the authority. You are very often the counselor or the person who has advice or help, but not demands obedience. Create a positive family atmosphere. If you and your husband or you and a child disagree, whenever possible, do it in private and try and maintain family relations that are cordial, warm, and loving. The other thing to stress is ongoing communications. Your children need to be aware of your family's needs, your family's problems, individual needs, individual problems. There needs to be open and ongoing communication. Promote growth is another area of foundation skills. Show respect for your child. Don't demean him in any way. Avoid power struggles. I will discuss this in detail later. Implement simple problem-solving methods. This is a category that I call if-then. If you need to be ready on time, then we'll put all of your backpack materials together the night before. If you need help on preparing for any test, please give me the material now so I can review it. If then. Provide structure, set limits. We do this in class frequently. It is very, very important to do it at home. Bedtimes are at certain times, getting up in the morning, coming down for breakfast, being dressed for a social event or a religious holiday event. Set limits. TV time, cell phone time, computer time, all of these need to have set and recognized limits. Implement consequences. If a child does not observe limits that you have agreed upon, what are the consequences? What chore must he do? What privilege will he not be entitled to enjoy? What are the consequences of an action which is not appropriate? And inform your child why. Whom is he keeping waiting? Whom is he disappointing? How will his lack of sleep influence his performance in school? All of these things need to be made clear. Can using these foundation skills truly improve child relations? I don't know. What I do know is that I'm hearing the same problems from children both in the United States, parents of children both in the United States and in China. The two areas in which I have found the most problems are avoid power struggles. Dr. Dreiker's advice about how to avoid this is simply withdraw. Withdraw from the field of battle. Don't become engaged in the struggle. Dreiker believes that since the child is a social being and his strongest motivation is to belong, as soon as you are unwilling to engage in the power struggle, he recognizes that if he continues, he will be put out or ostracized from your good graces and those of his friends. So, I'm withdrawing my attention. I'm putting you on the outside. I want, says the child to himself or herself, I want to belong. Let's avoid this power struggle. Under structure, Dr. Dreiker advises accurate, consistent application of logical consequences. That's what I was talking about with if-then statements. Unfortunately, our time together is at an end. In conclusion, I hope you have found our time together rewarding. My sincerest thanks to all of you for your attention, and thanks to our symposium sponsors and organizers for including me among its distinguished presenters. Sai Jen.